Hello everyone, my name is Summer Ragsdale, and this is Life on Blasse, Episode 2. First things first, I'll be using this avatar to represent myself and provide a bit more variety in pictures shown in the videos. On my shoulder is a species we have yet to meet that will evolve on Blasse. Also, many of these creatures were designed months ago, and I have since drawn 100 plus more creatures. Throughout the past months, I've been improving and changing my art style slightly here and there. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the video. Life on Blasse is primitive at best. The largest creatures are no bigger than my hand, and the closest thing to a predator is Parenticula venenum, a mildly poisonous UFO-looking creature which can't even see. The only things life can do at this stage is photosynthesize, filter feed, or chow down on marine snow. Complexity just doesn't seem to be in the vocabulary of Blasse. Life here is simple and small, but it won't always be like this. Big things will be happening very soon. The Cambrian explosion on Earth was an event that saw the massive explosion and radiation of very simple life into complex forms and ecosystems. The cause of this explosion can be attributed to many things, but two possible causes are the advent of predation and higher oxygen levels in the atmosphere. Macroscopic predation creates an arms race where life forms evolve to defend themselves or slaughter each other as efficiently as possible. As oxygen levels increase, animals are able to grow to larger sizes and become more complex. However, photosynthetic life on Blasse is quite inefficient, and so the oxygen levels will be low for a long time. Another hindrance is oxygen's penchant for reacting with minerals. But after thousands of years, the exposed iron and other minerals are fully saturated and the oxygen can begin to rise. Because of this slow climb in oxygen levels, Blasse's Cambrian explosion will be much less sudden. Less like an explosion and more like a bang. Despite it being slower than Earth's, it's still the fastest radiation of life in the history of Blasse. And finally, our event will need its own name. We'll call it the Albitaran Bang. Now let me tell you a story about the first predator on Blasse. Take a moment and put yourself in the shoes of a Parenticula venenum. Its entire life has been spent floating in the water and eating anything that floats past. It's on the top of the food chain and has done nothing but eat and grow its entire life. Its biggest threat is a storm that might wash it onto the shore or bash it against some rocks. Suddenly, its light-receptive organ detects a shadow above. Is it another of its kind? A new prey? Surely night couldn't have fallen already. No, it's moving too quickly. What could it be? In the venenum's primitive nerve centers, something akin to fear is developing, a new sensation that has never been felt before. And then the shadow grows, rapidly approaching. In less than 5 seconds, it's all over. Might I introduce you to Incorum volantum. Incorum volantum evolved from a triantical pinguis species, which evolved to use its front two ballasts purely for jet propulsion. Because they could not move so quickly, pinguis with the ability to see wouldn't crash into hazards and would be more likely to survive. To see, they would require larger brains to comprehend images. Their ancestors' brains developed purely to compile sense and how to react to them. Complex brains and organs require much more oxygen to operate, meaning that blood would be required to reach more complex and larger sizes. The blood volantum will use is hemoglobin, the same blood used by most animals on Earth. This rapid development of sight combined with higher energy demands opened up a new opportunity for them: predation. It uses its spiky shell to ram into any moderately sized prey it can find. It floats near the surface of the water, watching creatures below it, and when it spots something of interest, it will quickly eject all air from its jet organs and sink rapidly, aiming towards its prey. If the strike lands, it will thrash and tear apart the body of its prey, then it will siphon up any food pieces it can fit into its mouth. This creates lots of opportunities for detritus-loving animals that can eat the scraps left behind. Its 3 eyes also allow it to judge the distance between it and its prey, very accurately. Despite the fin-looking limbs, the only control it has over them is minor contraction and some wiggling. The control over the movement of their ballasts is similar to the human's control over their ears. Volantum are naturally cautious predators. If they miss their prey, they will sink quickly and could die from high pressure or starve on the sea floor. Volantum are self-impregnating asexual creatures, which allows them to lead solitary lives and commit cannibalism when given the opportunity. The children lack the spiny shells of their parents, and so they have to fit into a different niche. Ontogenetic niche shift is when animals fill different roles in the ecosystem as they reach maturity. Frogs are a great example. Baby Volantum will be planktonic and eat small microbes and detritus. As they grow and their ballasts get larger, they can begin their hunt. Some species' shells will become a spear, similar to the horn of earth narwhals. Others will take a more blunt approach, widening their heads into a meat mallet-looking shape, allowing them to crush and pulverize anything they ram into. Even some vermis species in their strong shells. One group has spines on their bottom half, which allows it to skim the sea floor and continue to move forward. Instead of moving backwards when it sucks water back into its jet organ, the spines catch onto the ground. Stella Cerulean is a benthic, 8-pointed star-looking creature. It uses its 4 mouths to breathe and eat any detritus, debris, or vulnerable sessile life forms. It has a singular eye that allows it to watch for predators above. It likes to eat debris created during Ancorum volantum hunts, and thus it runs the risk of getting eaten itself. Its diet of scraps and debris is facilitated by digestive enzymes in its 4 stomachs. The enzymes evolved from the toxins used by its ancestors, Parentequa venenum. It uses these toxins to break down dense tissues and pieces of shell and any other rotten scrap left on the ground. Just like in Ancorum volantum, their sight is highly energy demanding and raises the density and complexity of their bodies. Because of this, they too will need blood. They will use hemocyanin, and it will give their skin a blue pigmentation. They have 3 genders and reproduce by mating and laying eggs. The first 2 genders are male and female. The female produces 2/3 of the genetic, and the male holds 1/3 of the genetics. This means that in all descendants of Stella Cerulean, the males will have very little involvement in their young. The best odds to spread the most possible amount of their genes is to have as many mates as possible. The third gender is born under unique circumstances. When females go longer than usual without mating, they can self-impregnate and produce a group of offspring, all of which are the third gender. This gender will be called unmales. They can serve the male or female role in mating, and they exist to increase populations in sparse areas. Unmales cannot reproduce with each other. Paedomorphism is the evolutionary process in which a species will retain more juvenile traits into adulthood. In humans, it's the reasons behind their flat faces, shorter arms, and large heads. A more specific kind of paedomorphism is neoteny, a form of paedomorphism where animals keep their larval traits into adulthood. An earth example of this is salamanders. On Blasse, many animals have larval forms. Clonium brachiorum, for example, floats around the water before it begins growing more mouths and secreting sticky fluids. Capreolus album has an extremely altricial larval form that includes just one flagella-like organ, which will grow into its stem, and a round photosynthetic organ to allow it to grow. The most unique larval form in Blasse belongs to Tripylovermis. Its larvae are capable of some measure of self-determined movement, and it has a band of light-receptive organs to see which way is up. As it grows, it digests its own eyes because of how calorically expensive sight can be. But if Tripylovermis experienced neoteny, we would see a very unique creature evolve. Tripyloconus is the mobile descendant of Tripylovermis. It moves around the oceans by flailing its 3 tentacles or by dragging itself across the sea floor. Inside each of its tentacles is a long throat, which then joins up with its stomach. Its heavy shell is largely hollow, allowing it to crawl inside and hide or disguise itself. It has 10 eyes circling around its body, which gives it extremely good vision. Once again, we run into the problem of how expensive and oxygen-demanding sight is. But Tripyloconus won't follow suit with its newly emerging peers. It doesn't have blood. Instead, it has many gill-like organs between its tentacles and underneath its eye stalks. It also engages in ambush predation, hiding inside its shell and waiting for prey to move past. Then, once they're within striking range, it will lunge out and grapple the prey. It will then sit inside its shell, slowly eating the entire body. This dormant lifestyle is very energy efficient, but sitting in a hole isn't the greatest for absorbing oxygen. So it flushes water in and out of its hole by sucking the water up into its stomach and back out. Tripyloconus engages in broadcast spawning and shoots gametes out of its den. When it does spawn depends on the species, but things like the weather, temperature, phase of the moon, and so many other environmental factors can influence it. As Tripilovermis and Colonium brachiorum receive more and more pressure from predation, they will have to develop harder and thicker shells. Because of this, portions of reefs will thin, creating rivers of sand between islands of stone. Eventually, the reefs will return to their pre-predation size, but before they can, a creature evolves to take advantage of the large sand beds now uncovered. Quinque plumatum sectorum evolved from a triantical penguin species that spends its life scouring the sands of Blasse's oceans. While its ancestors were struggling to choke down and spit out sand, this species has turned it into an art. Its shell is far denser, which keeps it stuck to the ground and always feeding. Its mouth can't close, so just moving causes sand and food to enter its maw, and inside its stomach are baleen-like feathers which filter small edible debris from the sand and rocks. It has a hole in the bottom of its stomach which pushes out anything too large to fit past its feathery filter. These animals are built to sift sand, and they do it perfectly. The lawnmowers of the ocean chow down indiscriminately. To move through the sands, they jet water out the same tract they shoot sand through. They reproduce in the same way as their ancestors via self-impregnation, but rather than pushing their offspring out of their mouths, Sectorum drops their offspring off within the sand it sifts. But if its children were given pure, clean sand without any food, they would likely starve. So instead, just before it gives birth, it thickens its baleen to allow more food to be left behind for its children. This way its children won't starve, and they will be led in a different direction from their parent, decreasing immediate competition and the risk of cannibalism. Capreolus album suffers from a mutation that thins the membrane of its leaf and often causes it to split as it grows. This makes them very vulnerable to fast currents and herbivores like Stella caerulea. Parasites and pathogens could also get inside the plant through its torn membrane. These three factors make this mutation very deadly, and any individual who has it will almost never reach maturity. What began as a lethal mutation eventually becomes an evolutionary boon. All it took was getting lucky. One Capreolus album individual was born with this mutation, but this specific type of mutation caused the membrane to grow rapidly despite its thinner state, and it impacts the stem as well. This lets the individual create branches and work its way into the rocks of the reefs. Branches grow from a central point. If they receive sunlight while growing, they will develop a full leaf. If they do not receive light, then they will spiral and work their way into the rock. Now that this species isn't forced into the outskirts, they can live in the sunnier, shallower reefs. But with their roots, they can go much farther, into the tidal pools and river deltas where they receive little to no competition. Stella asymmetrica is a descendant of Stella caerulea, and though it may appear like it's a fish, if you take a closer look, it is far from it. It has only one eye on its right side, and because of its ancestors' spiral-shaped organs, its limbs are bent at strange angles. At the end of and between each limb is a hole that it uses to breathe or poop out of. Its 4 stomachs have specialized into 3 lungs and 1 stomach. It also has a folded intestinal tract to allow for food to be more thoroughly digested in the same amount of space. Dense hairs covering its holes deter any parasites or debris from getting inside. Stella asymmetrica also has 2 long tentacles it uses to rip apart vegetation for eating. Within these tentacles is a cartilage structure to give them more grasping strength. A common technique of these creatures is to grab down on leaves and roll as quickly as possible to rip a chunk off the plant, similar to the death roll of earth alligators. Their asymmetry and single eye makes them quite awkward swimmers. Those that grow too large become easy prey, and any that don't stick close to the ground could lose control of their movement and potentially get injured. Because of these factors, Stella asymmetrical will be forced to live in the shadows. The purple lake is a massive plankton that descends from Triantical globulos. Its ancestors are a common meal for filter feeders and small hunters. The main defense method of the Triantical family is to breed faster than they can be eaten, but the lakes are different. It can grow to massive sizes larger than any other animal in Blasse. Its shell holds its large, soft body together, and its role in the ecosystem is similar to that of the mola or ocean sunfish on Earth, eating any larvae, smaller plankton, or soft-bodied creatures that float past. I've now shown you the radiation and explosion of life on Blasse during the Albertaran Bang, but despite its vibrant colors and active life that's growing in complexity, something has been brewing in the background, an event that could destroy many of the creatures we've seen today. Let me explain how. Blasse's global temperature has been rising gradually for millions of years, slow enough for life to adapt to the heat, but still dangerous. As water heats up, the amount of oxygen it can hold decreases. Because of this, and the higher oxygen needs of the newly evolved life, many small, shallow areas and beaches will become anoxic and acidic. This minor extinction event won't kill off any full families, but it will significantly lower the numbers of most species. Tripiloconus will suffer greatly because it lacks any blood and relies on its hard shell for safety in hunting. Its larvae also rely on their shells for defense against predators before they can find their own den and settle down. Stella asymmetrica will also suffer because their 3 gills will be damaged by the acidic waters and plant life won't thrive as much. Both these species also rely heavily on the reefs, which are very sensitive to changes in climate. One family, though, will succeed and potentially thrive during and after this event. Ancorum volantum. Their global habitat and high population protects them from extinction, and their asexuality lets them colonize new territories very quickly. Because of their penchant for cannibalism, they can also survive without other prey for long periods of time. After the anoxic event passes, Ancorum volantum will inherit an ocean where their competitors are weak and scattered. In the next episode, we will discuss the evolution of life after the anoxic event and the many descendants of Ancorum volantum. Thanks for watching.